guess is probably better than mine on what to expect with this one. There's a little bit of a backstory here. Let's go over kind of some of the weird stuff and see what kind of interesting scenarios we can put ourselves into today. So about 4 degrees off on timing with everything maxed, and we don't have any offsets in the ECU. So all of our table values are probably gonna end up pretty aggressive looking, but we'll start off real soft and kind of baby step it in just to play it safe. Next thing we got is the turbos. I don't know how much you can see of that, but the turbo is super loose and sloppy, so that might be a problem. This thing used to run and everything was, you know, relatively normal, but there was no firing in the wastegate, and the boost control used to work, but it doesn't work anymore. And backtracing wiring, it just turns out that it somehow now is wired incorrectly. So there's no really good explanation for that. On top of that, I noticed troubleshooting some other electrical stuff that the fuel pump seemed to sound weird and do weird stuff. So I pulled the rear seat out, and there's a random toggle switch under the back seat that was going to the fuel pump, and I don't quite understand the hows or the whys of that. So I pulled that out. The alternator belt was shredded, so I threw a new belt on it. Downpipe was blown up, so I made a new downpipe and dump tube and an exhaust while we were in there. And I've never run into this before, but this thing just would not crank. I hooked 2 giant, basically like diesel truck batteries up directly to the starter, and it still would not crank at a reasonable speed. Ended up actually redoing some wiring for the trigger for the starter, and somehow, some way that corrected the issue. So there's probably some underlying wiring issues going on associated with that, but for the time being, that seems to be working pretty normal now. I'm not sure if
my mind is playing tricks on me,
but it sort of sounds like there's a little bit of a misfire at idle, but everything checks out, and once you start revving it, all of that goes away, and it appears to be running perfectly. So just one more thing I'm gonna try and keep an eye on. This thing only has about 140 PSI of compression in all 4 cylinders, but everything visually appears to be okay. So I don't know if it just has really low compression pistons in it or what. The very long backstory on this one is it came from another local shop. Endless amount of money was spent, and nothing that was on the invoices really matched what's on the car. So basically can't trust any of that. So there's a whole lot of unknowns. If I didn't see the invoice in the car with my own eyes, I would call, you know, BS on that shop doing this work, because I'm familiar with stuff that they've done in the past. So again, I don't really know what's going on there, but I've seen the invoices and I've seen the results, and it's a little bit of a basket case. So we're just gonna start nice and conservative and start walking it up, and if anything seems suspect or questionable, then we'll go ahead and stop and kind of go from there. There is a lot of other additional stuff on this I'd like to redo in time, but we're at the top side of the budget and I need some space back in the shop. So hopefully we can make it through the dyno, he can pick it up, and then I can give him a list of other things to take care of. And if he, you know, I guess wants me to do it, then once we get through some of this busy spurt that we have, then maybe we can go in for like a round 2. But that's enough yapping. Let's get started.
You shut your face!
All right, the coolant temp sensor was just stuck at 150 degrees. That was another problem. Swap sensors out, and we have no idle control valve, so I'm just gonna keep it idling a little bit high for right now, and then once I'm finished, I'll go back and play with that a little bit more. Gonna try and just kind of shape the fuel curve down low, and then we'll start making some power runs. already sort of weird. It's like literally doing exactly what I'm telling it to do, which I figured would do the exact opposite of that. All the low cam stuff's actually pretty damn close right now, so I think I'm just gonna jump right into doing some sweep test runs, and we'll probably just, I guess I'll turn VTEC off for now and rev it up to 5-6 grand, and then we'll activate VTEC and see what we're up against. Not sure what gate spring's in this. Guess we'll find out real quick. Got a TPS sensor code. It's really lean. This TPS sensor is going to be a problem, so let me go investigate and see what's going on with that. The TPS sensor that was on it. Throw another one on there and hopefully that'll take care of it. Alright, you don't need to watch me tighten the bolt. So once I get this in, I'm just going to calibrate the TPS through the Hondata before I bother tightening it, just to make sure everything's going to work and it's going to fix our problem. So let me take care of all that now. Alright, there's a lot going on that run, kind of be expected with the first run with this thing. So we got new TPS, recalibrated it, everything appears to be working okay. Added a bunch of fuel, even though it might have just been lean because it dropped TPS, but I'll rather play it safe than sorry. So gonna make another baby run with VTEC turned off and go from there. Probably gonna need to let it warm up for a minute. It's actually a really good power for 6,000 RPM with no VTEC, and air fuel below where I want VTEC is pretty good, so I'll fatten it up a little bit here even though we'll never really see it, and we'll turn VTEC on for the next run. Rev limiter is a little lower than I was expecting. Bump that up a little bit. About 11 PSI and it's like 384 horsepower. Rev a little more, it's probably right around 400, so graph looks good. Kind of far better than I was expecting for this thing. So if we look here at the graph, as we ramp into power, air fuel comes down about where I want. Even though I added a bunch of fuel here, it didn't really take it. And then once we get past that, everything's fine. So right here, we'll have to correct that. And our graph looks nice and good. And then if we look at our graph here, just ignore this air fuel ratio on here. There's nothing connected to it, but you can see our RPM and boost, and our TPS held 100% that time with the new sensor. So far so good. Maybe just to see if we're in the ballpark on timing, I think I got it. Should theoretically be pretty close, but we'll throw a little bit of timing in it upstairs and see if it does anything. And if not, we'll pull the timing back out, turn the boost up a little bit, and if it likes it, then we'll decide if we're going to put more in it or not. But I don't suspect we'll see a whole lot of a gain there. Called that 400 on the dot. Overshot my fuel in here, but everywhere else is exactly where I want it, and the timing didn't do shit, so we're going to pull that back out, and I can tell this is just going to be a jerk the whole time, so let's see if we can straighten that out a little bit. Alright, since adding a little bit of timing literally didn't pick up anything, I actually went the opposite direction, went back to where I had it and then pulled a little bit out from there. So I know we're safe there, and I think we're going to turn the boost controller on. We'll just hit it with like 40%, see what happens. And I always forget to check my boost cut, so I actually remember this time, and I think we're good. Let's see what 40% will do. Alright, didn't do much yet. We'll go a little bit higher on the boost control and try it again. Looks like that dip is still just not changing. It's really not that bad, I just kind of being picky. if we scroll through, we're at 50% duty cycle on the controller, and boost went up about 1 psi. It's a little bit interesting is this RPM trace kind of has a dip right here, so hopefully that's not a sign that the clutch is trying to go. Pretty solid difference for basically 1 psi. It's basically right when we transition from the low cam to high cam, we have this fat spot. Sometimes you can get that to go away, sometimes you can't, but it's nothing horrendous. The car doesn't care, it's pulling right through it, but I'll keep tinkering away at that. Realistically, power wise, you know, what it's currently making is more than enough, but we'll turn it up a little bit more and see what happens. So that was 50%. Screw it, I'll just try 60% on this one and see. Everything is rock solid, and right where that dip is, it's just, you can change it 30,000% and it's not doing much. Everything else is dead nuts. 450 is a pretty nice round number. We'll check out some things. Maybe we'll call it good there. I'm not sure yet. Plugs all still look so happy. I think I'm going to try a couple more pounds for the hell of it. Cylinder number 3 actually looks a little bit richer than the rest, which is weird because that's usually the exact opposite. I think I might suggest that he has the injectors flowed. All right, a little more boost. Tried farting around with that little weird dip at VTEC a little bit more. If it doesn't change or do something this time, then I'm just gonna kind of accept that it is what it is. And yeah, hopefully make a couple more horsepower. Power's good, but we're out of fuel pump, so we're gonna have to back it back down. Just double check a couple of things, but that's probably gonna be the end of the day here. I actually got a little bit of duty cycle left on the table. Now I gotta make some decisions. I got options. The worst part about this deal is we're clearly kind of at the end of the road, right where this turbo wants to really start actually doing something. So we could throw another 10-15 pounds on this thing. This thing would be an animal. It doesn't have the fuel system for it, but this thing is running far better than I anticipated. Wish I got to say that more often. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya. This might actually work out. I'm actually going to save this as a separate file name, so if I throw a bunch of fuel at it and it is a fuel pressure problem, I don't have a fuel pressure sensor on this. That way, if I don't jack the whole fuel curve up and then have to go back and fix it, so we'll just save it as a new file name, and like I said, if it is a fuel pressure problem, then we can just go back to the other one. So one of two things is going to happen here. Either the additional fuel is going to show up on the air fuel ratio, or we're going to add all this fuel and it's not going to change, in which case we know it's a fuel pressure problem. I got more people stopping by. I forget what I was saying. Oh yeah, if it's a fuel pressure problem, we're done. Based on nothing other than how long ago this car was put together, it's probably has like a Walbro like 255 or something kind of small in there, so that's probably what we're up against, but let's see what happens. It's been about an hour since the last run, so actually I had to let the car warm up all the way again. So just threw a bunch of fuel at it. We're gonna see if it works. So like I said, it's gonna go one of two ways. Either it's gonna work, or it's just a fuel pump, fuel pressure deal. I guess we'll know here in a second, huh? Alright, yeah, I'm gonna call that good. It's just 93 octane. It like finally responded to this this dip that I've been dealing with all day long. I just can't decide if I want to back it down a little bit or fatten it up a little bit, because it's a little too lean for letting it roll like this. Yeah, I'll make one more run. I'll just fatten it up a little bit. Not trying to make any additional power with this one. It'll be interesting to see if it loses any by fattening it up. Usually they don't, but every now and then you get surprised. Much safer air fuel, power's basically right there. So just a couple of horsepower way up top, but there could be a bunch of different variables. Just simply making runs back to back like that could have caused that. The difference is the previous run, I couldn't let it leave here like that, and this run is a whole lot better. I'm actually still going to fatten it up just a little bit, but I don't need to make another run for that. We're going to call that good on this one, and this thing went far better than I expected. So as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.